Welcome to another racetrack review, and this time we're going to take a look at Alice Gas GP made by Jeffrey. So another submission from him. His last track was also in the Elysian Island area. This uses kind of completely different roads, but it's in the same general area and kind of an interesting layout with some of the stuff you don't usually see that often. So yeah, before we get going, I should set this today or to noon, so we don't have to go for this in a night race. But I can't really see too much, or at least not as much. So yeah, let's just take whatever doesn't really matter for this review. Let's just stick to the penetrator. So again, as usual, first lap will just be a showcase of the track, not really too many details where I'm just mentioning it because otherwise I don't have too much to talk about in the first time anyways, so yeah. Overall, I gotta say, this track kinda reminds me from some of the things, it reminds me of Suzuka. Especially when looking that this one has a lot of, well, different elevation changes, and the it's basically you go from one point to another and go back on another part of the racetrack, which isn't too far off of a first part. So it's basically two lines, one from A to B, one from B to A, and they are really close together for the most part. So this is kind of why it reminds me of that track, because, well, it's kind of similar in that fashion. So it's not really a track that's widespread, but it's kind of it's really narrow and long when you look at the track map. That's what I basically wanted to say with this. And overall, I already gotta say this is really pretty well made. So not much to say about it. This is again mostly about the details, since the track is already at a really good state as it is right now. So let's get right into the review. And the one thing I really don't like about this track is this outside barrier and the one from the last corner, which is basically the same but in another direction. So yeah, the hitboxes on these things always have been shady, so I would strongly suggest you remove the guardrail and replace it with something else. Maybe one of the corner pieces from Vista would do you quite well. Let me just get my pointer here. So yeah, maybe one of the corner pieces, maybe one of the wall rides, or the quarter pipes or something like that, but most of the stuff will definitely work better than this thing, because this is really just obnoxiously bad and not well designed by Rockstar by any means. So I'd say way better to just remove it and replace it with something else, because, well, especially if you have an understeering car, you may really get into this stuff if you miss your braking point by a bit. I like this little runoff area. That's quite nice, especially if you get the right line. First of all, I was fine with a really understeering car with GP1, and it really I didn't really even come close to it the first race. I ended up in the wall over there, but yeah, kinda happens. Maybe there's an argument to be made for this to be put a bit earlier, so especially for the understeering cars, so that the runoff area starts somewhere over here. I don't think it needs to be as long as it is right now, so moving it back a bit would help, although you may then get into some problems with some of the other barriers, although yeah, you would have to replace this again to make it fit to the other part, but I don't think it's too bad as it is. That's just a minor suggestion there. And for a lot of these slopes, I'd say you could try to just take away the pieces you use for the slope and replace them with the new slope pieces, because, well, even though these things are really well made and there's not really anything to complain about here on a technical level, but even if this just consists of two parts, which it very well might be, when you could even save just one prop and use it somewhere else. So yeah, this is more of a suggestion on how to save props and not use as many of them instead of trying to make it smoother, because it doesn't really need to be smoother. But being efficient with the props could improve it a bit, because you could use that stuff for other things. Although, well, he likely started building this track before those pieces even came out, so can't blame him on that. I had one of my tracks getting a rather significant upgrade in some of the slow pieces recently because of the new stuff, so can't really blame in for that, but it's definitely sometimes worth to look at the pieces and think about where you could use them on your already existing tracks. For this thing, I think it would be a bit better if this prop was just raised to the ceiling, so you can't really see behind it. There's not really much to be seen there anyway, so I think it would just look a bit cleaner if this was put right up against the bottom of that whole piece. So again, just for the looks, it would look a bit cleaner. I mean, there could be a fringe case where somebody kinda gets underneath a car and pushes him off to the side here, but yeah, that's more of the things that shouldn't happen. I've seen that happen on some of the other tracks I made, which was really quite impressive, but overall, again, this was just a suggestion for the looks, although if you drive this track often enough, something like I just described is likely to happen at some point. So for this prop, for this thing, I don't know if this really needs any change, or if you need to cover it up. I don't think that's really a high priority. Most of the time when going through this corner, you're likely going to go like this anyway, so you're not getting too close to it. Also, I should mention that it may look a bit strange, but you don't really even need an inside barrier here. These things may look a bit, yeah, not, they may look a bit odd as they are placed, but overall, the way they are working here should be quite well as an inside barrier. So not even a need to do something about that. However, something that I'd like to point out here is that, yeah, there is something wrong with the hitbox here. I can't really tell what it is, but at this part there seems to be a strange transition which results in some kind of edge. I don't know if you really need to do something about it, but just letting you know that it's here. And with Penetrate, I think it's not even that big of a deal. I had bigger problems with one of the other cars I've been testing this track with. So for this part, first of all, I really like the inside barrier here. It's it could launch you a bit if you are going over it too deep, if you're really cutting the corner, but well, first of all, you are not supposed to do that, and even if you do, it's not too harsh anyway, so well placed here. For the other part, well, this is a bit of a problem here, because I personally think from an optical standpoint this isn't looking too good. Also, having this hitbox here is maybe also not the best, and well, with all the holes in it and the different colors, these props being put into each other, it's looking a bit cluttered. But the thing is, this is a really complicated area to deal with. You've got the elevated part here, you've got the other part down here where you're going back to the starting grid. So yeah, finding something that works for both of the parts is a bit complicated. However, I think there's something to be said about this gap here, which in my opinion should be closed. Come on, get out of there. Goddamn penetrator gets stuck in every fucking hole. Yeah, I just said that you can do with a sentence what you want. And overall, I think the problem with the visuals here is more on this part anyway. So when you're coming from here, yeah, in my opinion, it's a bit hard to keep a focus on what's important, although, well, the orange part makes it kind of stays out, which is quite well done here. So, but I think the inside looks a bit cluttered. The shadows this thing is producing is also not really that ideal, but overall, I gotta say, just from the hitboxes, this is working out quite well, even though it doesn't really look too good. So, yeah, I don't know. I would maybe try to use one of the some of the quarter pipes or the hums or what they are called, some of the new road slope pieces, and try to make something that's just an inside barrier here, and then take a few more props and try to make something that's an outside barrier for the upper part. So this is kind of a try to solve both problems at the same time. I think it's decently well done, but well, it's just mostly from the looks of it. Good, I can respawn down there then. So, I don't know. The way this is working is decently well enough, I think, so you don't really need to do something about it. You could if you want to, and that's just been a suggestion in the case that you really feel like you could do a better job on this. And as I said, this wouldn't be easy because, well, you would have to find something that doesn't stick out on the other part of the track. For this part here, it's also that you don't have much space to begin with, so it shouldn't restrict you any more than necessary. And yeah, not really too much to say about it otherwise. So I would like to see another version where it is a bit, where it's looking a bit cleaner, but it's not really completely necessary. So just keep it at that. So for this part, I think there's a bit of a problem because the render distance of the staircase, especially the lower part, is really not that great. So it's kind of hard to identify, especially when going through the checkpoint beforehand. So I think for this thing, there could just be a benefit if you put down one of the beach flags or maybe a billboard in front of it. Something to make sure that people see this thing before they are trying to cut the corner a bit too deep, or I don't know, maybe getting repelled off this thing, which could easily cause a chain reaction. And also maybe I'd try to put down something as an inside prop here, so that people can't hit this pole. I don't know, it's a bit on a strange spot here because it's right on the racing track, which you wouldn't necessarily assume it is. And depending on how the sun is standing, right now with noon it's obviously not moving, but I've seen this at a few other times of days, and there are a few instances where this will be completely covered in shadows, and that kind of makes it hard to focus on this thing and predict where it is actually standing, because kind of a way where how it's going through the bottom here, it doesn't really look too connected in my opinion. I mean, for me this kind of halfway looks like it would be a floating piece and not really at the point where it is standing, just an optical illusion in my opinion. But yeah, maybe try to find an inside barrier that keeps people on the outside here and kind of encloses this thing. My initial idea was to maybe try to extend this whole thing a bit more to this side, but then I noticed this container which likely can't be removed, so yeah, there isn't much space in this direction anyway, so nothing that you can really use. But overall I gotta say, I really like these corners. They are pretty well made and completely custom corners, which I quite like here, and I gotta say this really has a nice flow to it overall. Wouldn't change it on the basic level. So again, for this part, I did a barrel roll and 180. Yeah, this prop really... I don't know what we did here. I don't know if it's supposed to kill you, but yeah, again, I would just try to replace it with either a wall ride, something else, maybe one of these parts, or even multiple if you have the props for that in space. So just I just try to get rid of it because this isn't really doing too much good and can cause a lot of unnecessary issues. Also, if you replace it, you might find a way to connect it to this guardrail, so you don't have to use an extra prop for this. Although this is kinda good because with this thing you have like 2 props already to use for this, and just in case if you find something that may work but you would need 2 parts of. So yeah, that would be my suggestion for this part, because yeah, you see what could happen, and that was really, yeah, that was the 101 on why to not use these parts. Again, for this thing, I'm standing with the same argument as for the other part, that it's looking a bit cluttered with the halfway see-through parts and the stuff being put into each other. However, other than that, I think overall this is really well made. This really, the hitboxes are quite nice for this, so it's a very decent outside barrier, and since the tubes are going further away from the track and not over it and covering it, I think, yeah, this is clean enough, so this isn't really as much of a problem for the eyes as the other parts. So I think you could try making this with some of the wall rides and the new road slope pieces, but overall I think this is definitely a good solution as it is right now, and definitely helping with not getting into some of the stuff on the outside there, so pretty well made. So I think I've talked about this enough already. So, although I gotta say this is also a bit of a blind corner, because it has a few more apexes than you would initially think. So first of all, you got this white part. Once you get too close to it, you see that there's also the blue part, and once you get too close to this, you see that there's also something a bit behind it. So maybe just having, not even removing this whole stuff, but just having one solid barrier that doesn't have any holes in it, like one of the road slope pieces if you find something with a wide radius. That just goes from over here and ends somewhere over here. That would already improve it in a way, because then you wouldn't have these multiple inside barriers that all have their own radius and stuff, and I think this would be a bit better to predict if you just had one corner with a constant radius and not these kinda coupled together stuff. Also, there's maybe a bit of a problem that this corner is always a bit sharper than you would imagine it to be. So if you're looking at the inside barrier, this looks like a quite open corner, but the outside barrier tells a different story. So but I think overall I wouldn't change too much about it, especially not the outside barrier. That's really quite well made, especially since it is orange and sticking out there. So for this part, really not too much to say about it. I like the aesthetic of it. Really well made, really smooth, and well, I mean, you could maybe use a few less props if you remove this prop and the prop afterwards, and just replace it with one of the slope pieces, just to save a few props that you could use at another point. Same goes for this, although this is so smooth I can't even tell if this isn't one of the slope pieces already, but this is really quite well made, and again, the things I'm suggesting here are more to save props than to make it smoother, because this doesn't really need any improvements on that level. It's very good as it is already. So kind of the same thing goes for basically all the elevation changes here. For this thing I think the pit lane could maybe use some of the floating wrenches. Since the last update they reintroduced some of the issues you get when deleting a prop below a checkpoint or a weapon, so you would first have to place the prop here, then put the wrenches on top of it, and then reselect the prop by not having the what's it called again, the prop snapping and the prop stacking activated. Then you can reselect the prop, move it to somewhere else far away from the checkpoints and the wrenches, and delete it over there, which then should leave the wrenches intact. So yeah, that should help here. And maybe if you find one prop you could use here, if you find one more space for a prop, I think it would be nice to have a siren here that, or a horn or a speaker, whatever it's called at the end here, so that when somebody's maybe if at this point that it would give a signal to people on the racing line that somebody is leaving the pit lane. Because this is kind of reconnecting very close to the racing line. Since it's mostly straight, I don't see too much of a problem with it, but when somebody's approaching from over here, you can't really see it too well either. So now you got the thing inside, but I think if you had, if somebody was to reconnect or re-enter on the racing line, having a siren here would really be helpful for this stuff. So for this again, not really too much to say about it apart from the usual slope stuff to save a few props. And again with outside barrier. Also, you maybe when you are replacing this, you could just put a barrier down that ends somewhere over here after the last red part, because well, at that point you can't even go off the track anymore, so just have it a bit more open, so if people want to take the wider line, I think that would allow them a bit more to do so. And I don't know if you could find another road slope that would make this a bit smoother, but if you find one, you could also do that on this part. Just remove the props over here and place one upside down, so it would have the same radius as the slope piece you use for the road, but just be as a one-off area. Overall quite well made, especially since the bumps here are smoothed out, so you can't even get a curb boost off of this, and yeah, quite like it for this. Overall, again, this is a really well made track already, and most of the suggestions have been really minor things and not even issues or something, just a few suggestions to maybe make it a bit better, but well, again, some of the stuff kinda even depends. Some things are try and error, I can't really test a lot of things, so yeah, just a few things as an input in addition to what's already here. So yeah, again, that's been it for this episode. Thanks for watching, I hope it was helpful, and see you next time. Bye bye.